Hello viewers, I'm Jordan Golson and this is Two Guys in Traffic, and I am in the 2021 Toyota Land Cruiser, which we have to say goodbye to. And before we get started, like every other YouTube channel, I do have to ask you to like and subscribe to this channel and comment down below if you have any thoughts, if you like it, if you don't like it. Really appreciate it. Now, on to the Land Cruiser. So the Toyota Land Cruiser has actually been around in this form more or less since 2008, more than a decade, and until the Nissan Frontier was replaced last year. That was the oldest platform car you could buy, and now it's this, and it's actually tied the Land Cruiser, the Toyota Sequoia that's getting replaced later this year, and the Dodge Challenger, which has seen a number of changes over the years, but is still the same basic car, and this is the same way. The Land Cruiser, this is a $90,000 Toyota, and it's the same as the Lexus LX, if you've seen that. And when the new Land Cruiser comes out, which is actually already out in the rest of the world, it's not coming to the US, at least not yet. The Land Cruiser name is gone as of now. This is a 2021 Land Cruiser, and it was actually built, I checked the sticker on the door, in August of 2020. So this is already a year and a half old, even though it's ostensibly a new car. And Toyota is loaning it out to journalists to have a fond farewell. And it actually has more miles on it than I've ever had on one of these press loaners. It's got almost 17,000 miles. So it has been pretty well loved here, and I think I'm actually one of the last journalists to get to drive it. And so that's kind of special, and it's a little sad, but at the same time, it is very old. And maybe it's time for it to move on. And I've heard that the new Lexus LX 570, which is what replaces this and is going to be the Land Cruiser in America, is very interesting. And if you like large front grills, you should like that. So let's get into a little bit of what makes the Land Cruiser so special. Land Cruiser has been around as a name for decades, and it's always been a super reliable off-roader that will get you anywhere and get you back again. And this one is no different, and it's got every off-road option you can think of, basically, for a big SUV like this. It's got 4 high and 4 low. You've got a knob right there that you can change between those. It's got crawl control. It's got trail turn assist. It's got, you can start in second gear. You could lock there's a center diff that you can lock that really can get things going. It's got a very good suspension. It's infinitely upgradable because so many people have bought these and upgraded them and made them off-road monsters, or gone and explored Africa or Alaska or Montana, wherever you want to go. You could take a Toyota Land Cruiser, or you could just buy it and drive around Orange County with it, because everybody knew it has a presence to it somehow. It's so big, but it's not unnecessarily big. Like, it's proportioned right. The hood is like the right size. It feels right. And technically it's a 3-row, and it's got seats that like fold down like this in the back. It's extremely well known, and people know that, they might recognize it, and it has the same sort of cachet, even though it's got the Toyota badge of a Range Rover, for example, or, as just pulled up behind me, a new Land Rover Defender. The engine, which is an enormous V8, makes, closing on 400 horsepower, something like that. Extremely fuel inefficient. In my week with this, I've put 150 something miles on it, and 11.5 miles per gallon, so that's not very good. It sort of makes you wonder how they could keep it around so long with that engine. Well, that engine is buttery smooth. It's such a nice engine. It revs really nicely. You just put your foot down and it doesn't rocket away, but it certainly gets up and goes, and it has plenty of low-end torque, which is what you really want with an off-roader like this. It's also incredibly reliable, which helps too, and largely the engine hasn't changed much since this thing came out more than a decade ago. Rugged is probably the right word. Rugged luxury. That's the Land Cruiser, this Land Cruiser. in a nutshell. But you can tell it's old. It doesn't give quite as good a ride. It doesn't do all that, but its abilities made up for it. And here's the crazy part. So this car is not being built anymore. You may be able to find some of them new, but I bet they're going to be marked up. Because this car, though the sticker price says about $91,000, I found used 2021 Land Cruisers with 9, 10, 11,000 miles on CarMax for $110,000. So with 10,000 miles on it, used, it costs $20,000 more than it was new. This one's had some upgrades over the years. It does have Toyota's full safety suite, and I really have to credit them for this. It's got adaptive cruise control, it's got lane departure warning, blind spot monitoring, it's got automatic emergency braking. It has all of those safety features, which most car companies wouldn't do to the old cars in their lineup. But Toyota, they did it to the Tundra, they did it to the Tacoma, they did it to the Sequoia. All of their old trucks has all that safety stuff. And so it's sort of like upgraded modern, but then in other ways it's not. So you've got this screen here, which is straight out of like 2014, something like that. It does tell me the weather because it's connected, sort of. You go into, okay, it says apps, and you got fuel consumption and weather, traffic incident. That's it. None of that does anything special. It doesn't even have CarPlay. And you get this navigation system, which, okay, it's nav, but it's clearly like 8 years old. I would much rather have CarPlay or something up there, but they just never put it in. That's almost part of its charm, I think. It's like it embraces the fact that it's old, but it's proven. We'll use the word proven. And it has been upgraded with things like a 360-degree camera, which is nice for just simply parking this beast if you have to go do that in a parking lot. Or if you're off-roading, it does have camera views of the individual wheels, and so you can do things like that and, you know, help with rock crawling or spotting your place on a trail, things like that. Off-road capable stuff. It's got buttons, and it's got this old digital display here, and it's got up-down buttons for the temperature and the clock and the outside temp, and it's like, okay, it's all the stuff you need, but it's not exactly a modern presentation. So here's one feature. When you come to a stop or low speed, I have it set to auto camera. It'll show you the front wheels and how wide the car is, so you can sort of spot where you are against the lines. And I think driving around most of the time you would turn that off, but it is kind of neat that it does that. So when you're out off-roading and you want to see what's going on, you can do that. It's got normal buttons and stuff for the climate. It does have a big volume knob and tune knob, and then it's got a little thing here, and you flip that down, and there's an SD card slot, micro SD, and it says map, and that's where the map data is. So if you want to update that, whereas all new cars just update. So then there's this little door, and there's a 12-volt power outlet in there, and actually that's where the wireless phone charger is. Toyota's engineers have figured out a bunch of ways to upgrade this and make it more modern, but just trying to do it in a dollar-friendly way. Replacing the whole infotainment system, that's super expensive. Tucking a wireless car charger in there, not so much. Then you've got some stuff down here. You got buttons for the steering wheel heater and the heated and cooled seats. And actually, if you just press it once, you get one of my favorite features in Lexus. I believe it's still called Climate Concierge. And what it does is it's an auto seat heater and cooler, and depending on the temperature inside the car and what you have your climate set to, it'll automatically turn on your heated or cooled seats. Why every car doesn't do that, I don't know. You have over here an aux-in headphone jack, and a single USB port. Clearly also retrofit. Then you got all the off-road buttons, and you got the high and low, and the crawl control. Button here, locking center diff, traction control, button so you can start it in second gear, which you might want to do in some off-road scenarios. And then you got a couple cup holders. And in here you have a little bit of storage down there, and a cool box, which is not a refrigerator, but it can keep your chocolate from melting on a hot day. And you do have a sunroof here, and all that. And then on the dash, this is also old Lexus. This is the stuff I would have seen like 3 or 4 years ago that has been replaced in a lot of them. But again, it's old, but it's fine, and it's temperature and oil temperature and battery and fuel and, you know, how fast you're going and all that, and then the status of a bunch of your systems. I have blind spot monitoring on. I don't know why Toyota and Lexus insist on having lights to tell you that blind spot monitoring and rear cross traffic alert are on. BSM RCTA. What does that mean to anybody? It doesn't mean anything. It also does have my fuel economy, 11.6 we're up to, and then I can, you know, use the buttons on the wheel to, you know, change through those and see other stuff. I can see what song is currently playing. Other than that, the steering wheel, I have one of the last vehicles to have this terrible Lexus cruise control stalk. So you have to push in on the little end button to turn it on, and then you press down to set, and then you can change your speed by toggling up or down. And there's actually a little button here on the steering wheel to allow you to change your distance to the car in front of you, because of course this has adaptive cruise, which is very nice. So, you know, I like that they've put the new safety technology in their old vehicle. You know, it makes it a little bit more modern. It is a little rolly. It's a body on frame, and it is primarily designed for off-roading, so you do get a little bit of roll, or a lot of roll. This thing weighs more than 6,000 pounds, and so when you have a vehicle that weighs 3 tons, that happens. But it's certainly very comfortable driving down the road. You can see why people would want to buy this as a luxury car. You're up high, you're bigger than everything else around the road. And then in the back, you got plenty of room, and it's got screens on the back seats with a leather cover that says Land Cruiser on it, lest you forget what vehicle you're in. And it even has an HDMI port down at the bottom, so you can plug in like a Roku Fire Stick or Amazon Fire, you know, Apple TV. You plug in an Xbox if you wanted to play games or whatever and watch, which is much more useful than most of the screens in these older vehicles are, when you basically couldn't watch anything unless maybe if you had like a DVD, or on newer cars, I guess a Blu-ray player or something like that. But having an HDMI port, that's really cool for longer road trips. You just, you know, bring your thing in, and then I guess connect to a Wi-Fi hotspot or something, and, you know, let the kids watch something. There's Bluetooth headphones back there too, so they can listen and watch whatever, and you can be up front and not have to listen to SpongeBob or whatever the kids watch today. My favorite part of the car might be at the back, and it's got a split open tailgate. And so a big chunk of the tailgate opens up, but then there's a lip at the bottom that splits and opens down. And so you got a little place to sit. Like, I was preparing my camera gear out there when I was setting this all up. It's just neat because a lot of cars don't do that anymore. Either they just have one giant one that opens up. The Rolls-Royce Cullinan does that, has a split tailgate. Range Rovers are pretty common for having that, but this guy has it too, and I really like that. It's a nice touch, and it's something that's a little different. And perhaps it's just nostalgia that has me thinking about this. You know, we've seen this vehicle for 14 years now. It's had some upgrades over the years, but the outside still looks basically like it did before. This is definitely one of the last big V8. I don't care how much fuel I suck down. I'm going for comfort and power, and the new stuff is all gonna have turbochargers and smaller engines and more fuel efficient. For example, I just had a Ram TRX, and that had a 700 horsepower supercharged V8 and got pretty much the same fuel economy as this. 300 more horsepower, way more torque in a big truck that's even heavier than this is. That's what progress gets you, because that engine came out in like 2015. This came out 8 years earlier. Progress isn't necessarily a bad thing. And I do have to give Toyota props for something. Most car companies, when a car is leaving their lineup and they're coming out with a new one, or it's just not getting replaced at all, they'll just quietly yank it and not talk about it anymore. They'll say, okay, we're done. We don't have that car anymore. We're not gonna sell it. We're not gonna talk about it. But Toyota has let us take this vehicle and put a ton of miles on it, 17,000 miles. So it's got many more miles on it than would normally happen with one of these press cars. Some of them, they get out at 12,000 miles. Some of them maybe make it to 15, but that's about it. This one's going even longer than that, and they've let us say goodbye, which is really cool, and it shows the place that the Land Cruiser has in Toyota's mind as well, and in the mind of the buyers and all that. And this is a legacy name, and I am a little surprised, maybe a lot surprised, that they're not bringing back the Land Cruiser name in the US. And I think that's a mistake. I think it has such a history and I have to wonder if it's going to come back at some point or if it's just going to stay as the Lexus LX. Time to say goodbye. You served us well. Thanks for watching. I really appreciate it. Drive safely.